ruggedly handsome, sophisticated, a man of means and power. None of these are him.
Hello, this is JustaShow, and today's sponsor is the 1-Up Mushroom, now available for 100 gold coins. For more information, contact the Mushroom Kingdom Insurance Agency. Now, this was actually crocheted by a good friend of mine, and it relates to what we're talking about today, which is human capacity for good and evil, and it's something that I wonder about a lot. Now, whenever my friend made this for me, they don't get anything out of it directly. I mean, their quality of life is not directly improved by giving me a present, but it's something that makes them feel good, and it's normally regarded as a trait of a good person, someone that does for others and doesn't expect anything in return. So I asked myself this question: would it be possible for someone to become a relative paragon? Whenever I say relative paragon, what I mean is good and evil is all relative, and it varies from person to person. What one person finds virtuous, another person will find sinful. So if you had one person make a list of things that they consider to be good traits in a human being, would a person be able to stick to that list without deviating from it? Now, whenever I asked a lot of people about this, a lot of people were, shall we say, reluctant to believe in the idea of it. So I proposed the idea: would it be possible for a machine to become a relative paragon? If you programmed a machine to follow the commands to a T, would they be able to do it? And people were more likely to believe in that than a human being. And I think it's kind of interesting. I mean, it says something about us. But I mean, whenever you think about machines, they sort of have a box built around them. I mean, they can only do things that we program them to do. And I mean, if you take programming error, or not necessarily programming error, but if you take, program malfunction out of the equation, it would be possible for a machine to become a relative paragon because they cannot deviate from what they've been given. Now, a human has the option to deviate from it, so I could see how people could say, even if somebody really, really wanted to and they committed their heart and soul to the list, because they have that option, the ability to deviate from it, that a relative paragon might be impossible. Now, I asked them the same question, or at least the opposite of that question. Would it be possible for someone to become a relative anti-paragon? If someone were to write down the worst traits that a human could possess, and if a human could stick to that list, and people were more likely to agree to that than they would for the existence of a relative paragon. I find that really interesting because it says something about us. I mean, we sort of have a pessimistic culture where we're more likely to believe in an ultimate evil than in an ultimate good. And I mean, whenever you think of like all the pessimistic things that they report on the news, and I mean, just in daily life, I can see how people sort of get this negativity built up around people, and it's easier for people to assume that somebody's up to no good than somebody's genuinely doing something good. Now, my answer to this problem is a bit off the wall. I think it would be possible for someone to become a relative paragon if this person was devoid of emotions. Not necessarily, well, yes, necessarily, if they were a sociopath. Now, whenever you think about what a sociopath is, and I know I'm using that term wrong, but whenever you think about it, it's someone that's devoid of emotions, and we commonly regard that as someone who would be a criminal, someone who would be crazy. Well, I think if you can assume that they can do terrible, horrible things and not feel bad about it, then they could also do good things and not be strayed from that. Think about it. I mean, if somebody doesn't feel emotions, they are not classically motivated to deviate from good. It's purely based on whatever logic that they have. Just because you're devoid of emotions doesn't mean that you're devoid of reason. But they're motivations would be purely logical, which means if they decided to do good, if they decided to be a good person and act in the best interest of humanity, then you couldn't stray that person from the path because they aren't motivated by emotions. They wouldn't be consumed by greed or by lust or by envy. They would be able to sort of rise above it because that challenge isn't there to begin with. And I know it's a pretty radical solution to the problem, but it's kind of what I believe. And please let me know what you think in comments below. This has been Just a Show.